Hi class, time for lecture 18. We're going to talk about Pascal's wager. This is chapter 4.4 of the book, pages 352 to 357. So here's the nutshell of Pascal's wager that comes from the philosopher and mathematician Blaise Pascal. It's an argument that says we may not know that God exists one way or the other, but it's in our interest to believe just in case. And basically, it comes down to the idea that there might be a heaven, and the chance of heaven makes believing in God worth it, at least practically worth it from our own perspective, worth it enough so that we should believe. All right, so that's a really short, very quick, oversimplified, nutshell version of it, but it has an important difference between the other arguments for God that we've been talking about so far this semester. All the other arguments for or against the existence of God have been rational arguments. This is not a rational argument for God's existence. And by not a rational argument, I don't mean it's a stupid, irrational, silly, bad, unreasonable argument. I mean it's a practical argument, and there's a difference between rational and practical arguments. It's not saying that the claim God exists is true. It's saying there's a practical advantage for believing the claim God exists. So let me try to highlight the difference a little bit more. When you're offering rational reasons or rational evidence for some particular claim, you're offering evidence that that claim is true. So let's say, for instance, I really wanted to convince you that that movie Kick-Ass is an awesome movie, the movie that just came out recently. I might point to some of the factors, that the writing, the plot happens to be really good, the pacing of the movie is awesome, the cinematography involved and the fight scenes, all of those are what make the movie Kick-Ass awesome. And that is rational reasons to try to convince you that the claim, the movie Kick-Ass is awesome, is true, is correct. Now, that's one type of argument you can give someone. Other types of arguments, these practical arguments, don't offer you evidence that the claim is correct. They offer you evidence that it's beneficial for you to believe the conclusion or to believe the claim, no matter what. So let's say that every type of rational reason I tried to offer you to think that the movie Kick-Ass is awesome failed. And just in exasperation, out of frustration, I just turned to you and said, fine. How about if I pay you $100 to believe that the movie's awesome? Will you believe then? Well, that type of reason is a practical reason. Notice I'm not trying to convince you the conclusion is true when I'm offering you $100. I'm trying to show you that you should believe it regardless of whether it's true or false. So when you're offering practical reasons, the focus is on you specifically and trying to get you to believe the claim. You're not trying to show that the claim itself is true. For rational reasons, it is not person-focused. The focus is not on getting someone to believe it. The focus is on establishing that the claim is true, regardless of who believes the conclusion or who doesn't believe it. So, for a rational reason, an argument can be a successful rational argument, even if people stubbornly refuse to buy the argument or believe the claim. That rational evidence might still be good enough, might still prove that the claim is correct. On the other hand, since practical reasons are so focused on you, for practical reasons to count as good, they have to be successful at motivating you to believe whatever it is they're trying to motivate you. So even if the movie's bad, regardless of whether it's bad or good, if I offer you $100 to believe the movie's awesome, then it's in your interest to believe that that movie's great. Other types of practical reasons I might offer would be, look, I'll punch you if you don't believe that it's awesome. The only way you're not going to get punched is if you believe that the movie's awesome. That's sort of like a scare tactic. And it's still, in that case, it's beneficial to believe that the movie's awesome. Beneficial in the sense that you probably don't want to get punched. Right? So there are lots of different benefits, it seems, potential benefits for believing that there's a God. There seems to be something comforting about believing that there's a God. You can provide some kind of meaning for your life if you believe in a particular type of God. You can belong to a very specific and seemingly nice community of fellow religious people if you believe in God and you follow a particular religion, for instance. None of these are the direct reasons that the philosopher Blaise Pascal offers. Blaise Pascal, rather, focuses his practical reasons mostly on the potential of heaven and the potential of hell in the afterlife. So let's take a look at Blaise Pascal in particular. This starts on page 354 of our textbook. Blaise Pascal was writing in the 17th century. He was a philosopher, a mathematician, a physicist, all sorts of things, just a general thinker. Really known for philosophy and math, though, specifically. And he started from the position that, look, we just can't know whether there's a God. We can't know for certain one way or the other. A quote from him is to say, reason can decide nothing. So in other words, Pascal is a non-evidentialist. If you had to ask him whether reason could tell you whether there's a God or not, his answer is no. He still believes in God. He's religious. He winds up, he is actually a Christian. But he says his reasons for thinking that there's a God are practical. They're not rational reasons. So Pascal's next point is that it's not like you can be neutral on this issue. You have to wager. He uses the metaphor of wagering or betting to highlight this point. You have to, in some sense, lead your life either in accordance with the belief that there's a God or in accordance with the belief that there's no God. Practically speaking, you have to choose to lead one of those types of lives, either a religious life or a non-religious life. You can't really be like Switzerland and claim to be neutral and say, no, I don't believe or I don't not believe either. I just do nothing. Well, in this one sense, from practically speaking how you live your life, agnostics and atheists both lead the same kind of life, and happens to be a non-religious life. Only believers are the types who lead religious lives. So, since you have to make a decision how you're going to lead your life one way or the other, you're going to have to choose based off of some kind of reasoning. If it's not rational reasons, if it's not that sort of objective, reasonable type of evidence, you have to still choose some way. Pascal decides to choose based off of expected or estimated happiness. One quote from page 354 that he offers is, "Let us weigh the gain and loss in happiness in wagering that God exists." So all you have to do is do a little bit of estimation for how happy you expect to be if there is a God and you believe in God, how happy you expect to be if there isn't a God and you believe in God, how happy you expect to be if you don't believe in God and there is a God, how happy you expect to be if you don't believe in God and there isn't a God. For Pascal, he winds up doing a little bit of math to make this point, and because of this, we're going to do a little bit of a side lesson here on the type of math that Pascal uses. Pascal invented an entire branch of mathematics known as decision theory, sometimes called game theory. Game theory is kind of a more specific version of decision theory that tries to figure out your best option in particular decisions where you are not guaranteed ahead of time to know the outcome of those decisions, but rather you're given certain probabilities. If you choose this option, sometimes it will be good for you, sometimes it will be bad for you, and you have to figure out what's my best option to do given the various probabilities and expected outcomes of those probabilities. Alright, so fanciness aside, let's just play a dice game, which is fairly straightforward, where the object of the dice game is to try to roll a 6. And it's not technically a dice game because dice is multiple die. We're just going to focus on a die, one single die. That's a 6-sided die. If you roll a 6, you win, and I'll give you $24. If you lose, you roll anything except for a 6, you have to pay me $6. Now, is it in your interest to play this game or not play this game?